Look at that. How could you not love that? All right. We didn't do it yesterday. We didn't do it the day before. We didn't do it the day before that. We said we were going to do it. We didn't. But today we are. We're talking football. We're answering your football questions. It's on Locked On Syracuse. It starts right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on your Thursday episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today we're talking football. We talked a lot of basketball and the misery that brutal program brings us. Now it's time to talk about a team that had a winning record. Isn't it crazy that the football team more recently had a winning record in a season than the basketball team? That's nuts.
Absurd.
7-5 as Dino Babers and the Orange finished the football season. A lot of injuries this year, a lot of ups and downs. Honestly, the most wild roller coaster Syracuse football has taken in quite a long time. Had to the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. But Dino Babers was there through it all. Let's answer some questions. We asked you on Twitter to hurl questions at us about football, telling you that we would answer them, and then we didn't. But now we are. Thank you if you're one of the people who did ask us a question, as without you, these episodes aren't possible. We're going to start with Michael, who is a loyal replier. So, Michael, we appreciate you. He says, what bowl game / opponent would you guys prefer? I feel like that is the most burning question of them all, as it is nearing bowl season, and we're going to hear about bowl games very, very shortly. There are a couple of options here, although some news that was very recently brought to my attention from the wonderful Mr. Valentine is that the university went out of its way to ask the committee, the bowl committee, hey, don't put us in the Fenway Bowl because that's our finals week. And we want, the athletes to be able to take their finals, and we want the students to enjoy the bowl game, and we want them to travel. So don't put us in the Fenway Bowl. And the Fenway Bowl, I'll tell you what, was the overwhelming majority of choices from outlets. A lot of outlets thought Syracuse was playing in the Fenway Bowl. 24/7 Sports, Athlon Sports, CBS Sports, College Football News, ESPN. Everybody thought Fenway Bowl is where it's at for Syracuse, but likely not going to happen now. I don't know. I'd assume that the committee heeds that and they say, okay, like that's pretty reasonable. I'm not on it, but I feel like that's an entirely reasonable request. Other options, the Gasparilla Bowl, which I don't think is a popular one, down at the Trop in St. Petersburg. And then there's also the Pinstripe Bowl. Isn't it a little bit wild that every bowl that Syracuse is likely to play in is in an AL East baseball stadium? Like, it's kind of absurd. It's either Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park, or the Trop. I think that's a little bit crazy. I don't think anybody wants to go play at the Trop. Maybe some people want to go to Tampa. I don't really think so. Selfishly, I'd love if it were the Pinstripe Bowl because I could go to it very easily. But I mean, let's be honest, like none of these bowls are incredibly exciting. It's not like they're going to a huge bowl game. Like, it's not like it was the Camping World Bowl where that was pretty cool that they got to go down there and do that. This is just a, regular old whatever bowl game that Syracuse is Pinstripe Bowl, been there, done that kind of thing. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, here's my thing. I don't think, outside of the fact that the Gasparilla Bowl is cool in terms of being able to travel to a warm place, in terms of Syracuse fandom, and for those that would get on a plane and go down to that game, it's cool to be able to go somewhere warm. As the weather gets cold up here and it's winter time, and I got hit by an absolutely murderous wind every time I opened the door of my house or car today. It's nice to think warm, but the Gasparilla Bowl is not the answer and not what people want in terms of getting to a warm location. This could be a hot take. I enjoy the Pinstripe Bowl. I like that it's local-ish because it does mean that you get so many Cuse fans down there, and it
Yeah,
becomes
totally.
like an orange hub. And even though it's by no means what you want, especially given the way the season went, it's convenient for the university. I think someone was tweeting about this the other day about the relation with the university and the Yankees at this point, playing a couple of games down there, playing in the Pinstripe Bowl in the past. Works really well for travel and transportation and the home crowd and fans being able to get out there. Is it perfect? No. Is it still like not what you want in terms of bowling and bowl season? Uh-huh. But I don't hate it. Fenway, I don't think I was sold on or really excited about, but it would have been cool to be in a new location. I guess in terms of bowl games, there's not really like of the options that are being projected for Syracuse, like there's not a great one where I'm like overjoyed and ecstatic, which is I think why I am as high up on, I'd be okay. And I think I'd enjoy them going to the Pinstripe Bowl at this point, given the other two options, and especially given the fact that, Fenway Bowl has been asked to not go.
Yeah. In terms of opponents, it's a little bit of a similar case in terms of there aren't, you know, a plethora of options. It's from, those outlets, the same outlets I mentioned prior. East Carolina is a really big pick for a lot of places. Wisconsin has been named, Memphis, ESPN thinks Cincinnati. Um, we talked about this a little bit before we started. It would be cool to play Wisconsin,
Yeah.
a program that has historically turned out some really good products. Jonathan Taylor, what comes to mind most recently. They, of course, being in the Big Ten, play a lot of good competition every year. That would just be kind of cool to play a team like Wisconsin. ECU, Memphis, I don't know how much that would get me excited personally, but hey, at that point, I'm just enjoying the bowl game.
Yeah.
Um, who do you want to see?
I think I side with you in Wisconsin. I am a Seattle Seahawks fan. So I'm disappointed Russell Wilson's name stayed out of your mouth the entire time.
That guy
Even if it
stinks.
was
No, I'm just
only
kidding.
even if it was only partially with Wisconsin. Uh,
NC State,
I
man.
do like I saw Action Network in their projection has a Syracuse East Carolina game, which per their metrics would be a pick 'em, which I think it is pretty cool to go in a game that is a genuine coin flip. Whereas there might be some games where I don't know. I'm intimidated by a Wisconsin team, even if it is a down Wisconsin and a Wisconsin that's not as dominant or strong as they have been in years past. I do think a game against East Carolina presents an opportunity to win, and a solid
Yeah.
opportunity to win, which
Also,
is what people want, right? You're 8-5, which is a hell of a lot more redeeming than 7-6 when all is said and done.
I think this game likely going to be a little bit more competitive than the Camping World Bowl was,
Hmm.
because Will Greer didn't play in it, West
Yeah,
Virginia's quarterback, and I think everybody obviously was pumped to win a bowl game, but I think everybody in the back of their mind was like, our quarterback didn't play.
there's an
Like it
asterisk
was
with it.
like
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, there's your answer on that. On the other side, we're going to answer some more of those. So there's plenty of that where those came from that tweet. But first, let me tell you about BetOnline real quick. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today, or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. Alrighty. Question number 2. Bowl game opt-out predictions for Syracuse. This one a little bit more interesting. Obviously injuries have taken their toll on guys that I might have picked, like Garrett Williams or something like that. Um, Michael Jones may be a name that opts out in hopes of staying healthy for the draft. Uh, Bergeron, a name that comes to my head, perhaps. Though, I mean, I don't see like Sean not playing, or like Schrader's going to play. Of course, he's coming back. I mean, what comes to your head? Anybody?
No one. I mean, and obviously, I would assume someone does, or one or two guys might, but like, there's not really a name that I guess is jumping off the page. Michael seems like it might be the answer, but just because of battling a little bit. But at the same time, Michael also seems like the kind of guy, the kind of leader that wants to be right there more than anything in the world,
Totally,
which is where
totally.
I sort of side that he's going to play in this football game. This could be. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you could say I'm insane or I'm dead wrong.
You're insane. You're dead wrong.
Sean Tucker jumps out as a guy that doesn't play in this game.
Really?
Maybe I don't. He strikes me as a guy that maybe is set on where he is and doesn't need to go down and is
You
ready
don't
to
think there's
go.
any chance he comes back?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he
There
should
is.
come back.
I think he
But
should. Honestly, I don't think he
really?
will. I think he. I don't think he should. In hindsight, I think there is merit to it, given the season, and there could be some benefit to it. But I think now that you mentioned, there's too much downside for him coming back
Yeah.
and not enough upside, which
Also,
is
the
why
thing Max
I
said to
think
us on
there's
the
a
pod.
chance.
Sure. I was just gonna say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
The thing Max said to us on the pod last Friday, with running backs these days, a guy like him, he knows he's probably going to the league,
Hmm.
and you got to get your money early as a running back these days
Yeah,
because not a lot of them stick around. So, I mean, it just makes sense to me that Sean would want to go, which maybe he sits out then. Maybe that plays to your point, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I feel like Bergeron, who's already dealt with some injury down the stretch here, I don't really see
could
him playing in this game.
yeah,
Honestly, I could see this game being like a huge offensive line showcase for the new guys. We know
yeah,
Bleish is coming back, so he's going to play.
that's fun.
But other than that, I think that it could be, Bergeron's gone. Like you said, Michael, I think he might sit out. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the clear cut answer was Garrett Williams, and there's no decision to be made there now. But like fringe first round guy, there's your clear cut answer. Let's the draft stock is secure, the payday is imminent. Just relax. But there's no decision to be made there right now. There is, I mean, there's room to gain for a lot of these guys if they do choose to play, which I think leads them in the right direction. You talked about Bergeron. O-line injuries are too simple, too quick, can happen at any point, which is, an O-lineman strikes me as a decent decision not to play in this game in terms of securing some health. But at the same time, another game under the belt, it's a big deal, especially with playing the Senior Bowl a little bit later on. Doesn't hurt, uh, unless it really does. Knock on wood there that it doesn't. But it's weird to see. It's interesting to see. I understand why it happens. I don't like that it happens. I don't really think anyone does, but I think you're insane if you don't understand where sitting out of bowl games as an NFL prospect
Yeah.
comes into play. I don't know. This is one where like I don't like
Hard to predict year for the year.
throwing out
Just a hard predict
predictions.
one.
Yeah,
It's tough.
but definitely a conversation that I'm sure we'll return to when we hear who is
Totally.
or is not.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another one. This one from Pessimistic Cuse fan. Bowl predictions, we covered that. Next question. What is the number one thing that Syracuse needs to do between now and August? I assume he means football, like we're talking about. Yeah, that's a good question. And for me, I think you could go a multitude of ways with this. But the way I'm going to go is you need to clean up the quarterback room a little bit. And that could mean one of two things. Either, I mean, there are like 25 quarterbacks on this team. Like, there are so
3,000
many
actually.
quarterbacks. What'd you say?
3,000 of them actually.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that Dylan Markowitz is still on the roster here.
Wow,
Jacobian
mark me
Morgan's
down.
here.
Mark
Luke
me down as someone who
McPhail's
forgot
still
that.
hanging around. There are so many. Justin Lamson, who showed a lot of promise in the spring game. And, none of them are going to play because Carlos is there, and he's not even going to play because Garrett's going to be there. So, what I think they need to do, some guys, of course, should transfer, but also you've got to develop Carlos a bunch because from what we saw, he was not good and he was not ready. There were flashes in the pan where you were like, wow, that was a good play or nice throw or good job getting out of the pocket. But
Yeah. You
for
didn't
the grand
mention too.
majority of it, it was terrible. And they really need to figure that out or he's going to be terrible as well. Um, but
Who I mentioned there too is Lenore Sellers coming into camp too.
Oh, yeah, and then that's the other thing that I was going to mention too, and you're totally right. That I almost forgot is that Lenore Sellers, who's a hand-picked quarterback, this guy's scoring every point in the nation. He's coming too,
Yeah.
so there's that to deal with as well.
Yeah. You got to clean house in the quarterback room 100%. Not clean house, but there need to be guys that leave, or they need to understand what's happening because there's scholarships to be used on even risky transfers at that point that are going to be more beneficial than quarterback 6 and quarterback 5 in terms of the longevity of Syracuse. In other things, obviously, there's a ton of benefit in hitting the transfer portal for some O-line depth, getting some depth literally anywhere you can. You're going to lose a good amount on the defense, so bringing in some defensive guys and before August, you need names to join this list, right? We haven't talked about it in a few weeks, and that's because the list hasn't changed. The 2023 recruited class for Syracuse football is sparse. You need to add some names to that list. Really, where the names go, it's okay wherever they end up being. I don't think they necessarily need more running backs for 23, but O line, defensive line, honestly, defensive backs, really. The receivers seem all right, although a couple of guys have left now, entered the transfer portal already.
Not
In terms
Anthony
of Quealy,
Quealy.
in terms of Courtney Jackson. So really, the way this team looks right now, you can take depth anywhere, and it will
Yeah,
benefit this team moving into
sure.
next year. There's a lot that needs to happen before August, and just a lot of it we don't know the answers to yet because of the chaotic and unpredictable and inevitable numerous conversations that arise from this beast called the transfer portal.
Yeah. And that's the next question in this guy's tweet. Pessimistic Cuse fan is biggest needs in the transfer portal. I think it's just like you said, depth in a lot
Players.
of places. I was thinking about DB. Who's playing DB besides Deuce next year? It's Isaiah Johnson. It's Jeremiah Wilson. We didn't see as much of Jeremiah Wilson this year as I think we thought we would. And Jason Simmons is going to be on his way out too next year.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe you target there in the transfer
Yeah,
portal.
that'd be huge.
The defensive line, I think, could use a huge name from the transfer portal just to stick in there and be a guy who just comes in and is the new face of that line. Honestly, they've needed a receiver since Jamal Custis and Taj Harris left the school. Maybe I guess they got one in Tristan Jackson, but they really don't have. I mean, Ronde's fantastic. He really is quite good, but they don't have like a huge out wide running down the sideline threat. I thought Damian Alford would be that guy. He really wasn't. He made a couple beautiful catches this season when he was thrown to, but they don't have a guy that you can throw it up 50-50 ball kind of thing and he'll pull it down. Um,
Yeah.
I thought Damian could have been that, like whatever he stands, 6'6", whatever. But he just didn't really end up being that this year. Maybe he will next year.
Yeah.
But maybe they could go out after somebody like that as well. Offensive line, like you said, Owen, in the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal, I feel like you can never have enough.
Yeah.
So that could be a thing too.
100%. There's not really, as I said, there's not a position that I would be like, they really got another one, unless it's quarterback at this point. I think there's merit, there's benefit, and this team is going to be better for it. Adding some depth, or not even depth, adding a big name or a star or a starter at any position at this point.
All right, let's move on to another reply. This person says outlook on offensive line for next year. That's a pretty good question. Let's put all the depth and recruits and transfer portal aside and look at what they have right now going into next year. Like I said, Bleish is coming back. You do have him. I believe Kalan Ellis will be back as well. So there's that. Finally, Carlos Vettorello, after his 45th season at Syracuse, is finally leaving. So you're going to have to replace him. But you've got guys like Enrique Cruz, who was talked up all preseason by Matthew Bergeron as being next up and being the next big name on that offensive line. And I think people should be excited about Enrique Cruz. So you have that to look forward to. Jacob Bradford is another name on that line who got some playing time. It's going to be the kind of line that, I mean, it's going to be young. It's going to be a very young offensive line, and that's not always a good thing. You usually want to go into a season knowing that the line has been together for however long, but what you do have is that they've been together behind the other guys for quite a while. Josh Iloa, another name that I forgot to mention
Yeah, I was
there,
just gonna say
who
Aloha.
is really, really talented in the time that we've seen him too. So I think that the solace you can take is that maybe these guys haven't had a ton of time. They played the entire BC game, but they've at least been together, working together for it's going to be a couple seasons now. So I'm not really scared or worried about the offensive line. I honestly think they're going to be fine because the other thing is Syracuse has done a decent job of developing offensive linemen. Think about guys like Sam Heckel or transfer Coda Martin or Aaron Service, who was pretty solid. Bergeron, of course, is the biggest name as of late. They do a pretty good job of that. So the offensive line isn't something that I'm too worried about.
No, and I'm also gonna say this, right? It's not like the offensive line was something miraculous this year, although it might have been anticipated to be really solid and really good coming into the year. Wrongfully so. I was in that boat as well. It's not like they're replacing this incredible unit at this point in time. So I think these guys come in with some, as you said, hidden experience. I guess I would refer to it as they've been playing together a lot. I'm sure they're familiar, getting used to it. They've had their moments. You know, Cruz has been on the field a decent amount with injuries and things like that. There are some options there. I will always say this: you never have enough O linemen, and that's what we were just talking about. You know, if you go out in the transfer portal, maybe you get a good guy or two that can be in the conversation to start when all is said and done. I forget the name of the guy. I saw they were having conversations with an O lineman already from the transfer portal earlier today. Uh, Things are going to happen. They're going to happen fast, and I think the more O line names that you can bring to the table that aren't true freshmen, the better this team will be as a result.
Let's try to do two more before we have to wrap up. Let's do this one quick. Just a quick fire answer out of you. What is the overall goal for the program? Is it to win a championship, make a bowl? Obviously, every program's goal is to win a championship. So next year, what is the overall goal, in your opinion, for this team?
It's back to back bowl games is the goal for next year. And I want it to be more than that. It can't be more than that right now. Long term goal is that they put themselves in a position that maybe they can compete for a championship. Why wouldn't that be the goal?
Of
But
course it
right
is. Yeah.
now, I think the realistic goal in terms of something that's attainable, but that you need to work towards is getting to another bowl game next year. You know, Dino has talked about it consistently good, not occasionally great.
Yeah,
The
I
current
agree.
Dino
Even though that's what he's
situation,
been.
the current situation is occasionally good, consistently bad. So
Yep.
if we can get into the consistently good category where they're not going to be, you know, a 12-0 football team by any means. But when you're going 6-6, then you're going 7-5, then you can get with a greater frequency those flash in the pan seasons where you win 10 games, and the personnel works. But you've got to be good. So I think the goal right now, mentally for me, is next year you got to get to another bowl game, and preferably you do it in a manner that doesn't have you lose 5 straight, so I don't tear my head
Yeah.
out or tear my hair out, my head off.
um,
Right, like that is the goal. And at the start of the year, this season, that was the goal again, to make a bowl game, and they did. But when you're playing that well and you've got those flashes and you have that, then it, obviously goals change as they should. They're ever moving, ever adapting. It's like a stock market, right? When things are good, they can change quickly, but your goal needs to change as you go through and as you progress through a season. Right now, next year's goal is to make back-to-back bowl games because that is what you need in order to start building a program, to start getting recruits to come here, and to start establishing yourself. And Dino, you got 2 years left on a contract, right?
Yeah.
What's next? You got to start winning football games. At least get yourself to 3 years of consistently good to finish out that contract.
For me, it's just improve on this year. So whatever the record is this year, try to be better next year.
I
All
like
right.
that too.
Let's last question. Maybe in second to last, if we can get it in. Probably the last one. Who do you think are the main returners next year? Who are the guys that are going to be the cornerstone of the team next year that you are like, all right, those are supposed to be the stars of the team? First one that comes to my head, Aronde Gadsden. He's the star of the
100%.
team next year, star of the offense. I mean, Schrader, technically, I don't know
Yeah.
how. There are some Schrader lovers out there. He's going to be the quarterback for the third year in a row. He's got to be a star. I'm assuming Sean's leaving, so I'm not including him in this. Um,
I go Deuce
on
is
the
the first name on the defensive
Deuce,
side.
totally, 100% Deuce. Stephon Thompson, if he comes back after that injury. Marlo Wax, if he comes back. Those are two stars right there.
That's the thing, right? You go
Jason
Gadsden,
Simmons.
you go Schrader, you go Deuce, and then there's a lot of ifs. If they come
Yeah,
back, if they come
totally.
back, and,
I
and
think
that's
Simmons
where
would
it
be
is.
really good, though,
Yeah,
next year.
he's definitely shown it.
He's talented.
I don't have other names right now. I mean, there's a bank of guys that could step up and be a huge
Sure.
returner. But I mean, in terms of where I'm betting
Underrated
my money
guys.
right now, I'm not gonna really go outside. I don't even know if I want to throw Schrader in that mix right now. In terms of the biggest names and who the biggest name on offense should be Aronde Gadsden. Biggest name on defense should be Deuce Chestnut. Who else steps up to
Yeah.
the table? Who else is there? Is to be determined. And there is, frankly, I don't have enough info to make that decision yet. Or do
I
I
think
want to put myself on the line making that decision just yet?
I think a hugely underrated player coming back next year will be Anmore Sparrow.
Ooh,
Um,
I like that.
he was really, really good this year in the limited time that he saw. He's playing backup linebacker. He got shoved into the first team on and off throughout the entire season. Sack and a half on the year, 5.5 tackles for loss, 40 tackles on the season. He forced 2 fumbles, recovered one of them, broke up a couple passes. He kind of plays safety. He's been really, really good. He's technically a freshman this year because of a red shirt and the COVID year. So he goes into his 4th season next year as a sophomore. Wrap your head around that. I
Can
think
I go
Sparrow
bold?
is going to be really, really good next year.
I'm going to go bold. I'll throw a name out there. I know I just bashed myself and said I wasn't going to. Right now, I got this weird sensation, this weird thought that LaQuint Allen
Okay.
becomes a huge name on this offense. Uh, I could eat that in a little while, in a couple of
You
months. I
might.
could eat that comment, but I see LaQuint Allen as a guy that can make that step because we've seen it in glimpses. Not always, right? There have been bad moments or just moments where it wasn't great, but I think he's shown me a little bit that I want to be hopelessly optimistic right now as we have, 6, 7 months before that decision comes to fruition or not. Maybe even
Yeah.
9 months. I don't know how to do math right now.
I don't hate that at all. He's going to get a lot of carries. Jawan Price is going to see some time too.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, considering or assuming Sean is going to leave. But yeah, I think those are some decent picks for both sides. Jahad Carter is a guy we
Oh,
didn't mention.
okay.
He's going to be an absolute star as well. I can't believe it took us that long because he was fantastic this year. I mean, what a jump Jahad Carter took this season, and
Yeah.
he's going to be even better next year. So Jahad Carter, another guy who's going to be fantastic for Syracuse. All right, unless you got anything else, Owen, that's all
Um,
the time we've got.
I do not. I'm gonna write down a bet prediction.
Okay.
Um, for tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. This is not gambling advice. This is just me putting myself out there. I am going to take the Bills Patriots over 43.5.
Wow. You heard it here first. This is not gambling advice. In
Not
fact,
gambling
it
advice.
may
If I
dismay
was
you
giving
from
you
gambling.
advice, I'd say to do the opposite.
Well, that's not gambling advice either. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen. For your next one, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. I'm Matt Bonaparte. He's Owen Valentine. We'll see you tomorrow.